Most people think they already know who the biggest names in contemporary art are. They don't. Right now, in studios scattered across cities most people have never heard of, a group of artists is quietly building the kind of reputation that usually takes an entire career, and major museums are already lining up to collect their work. None of the 10 artists in this video paint the traditional way. One builds glowing worlds inside video game software instead of using a brush. Another sculpts every picture out of children's modeling clay. One paints entire complicated worlds the size of a dinner plate, while another fills aquariums with strange, half-natural creations that look like something out of a science fiction film. What connects all 10 is not a shared style, it's the fact that nobody else in the art world is doing what they do. These are the artists museums cannot afford to ignore anymore. Stick around, because by the end of this list, you will have 10 new names worth knowing before everyone else catches on. Anoushka Mirchandani. Anoushka Mirchandani paints people who seem to be disappearing into the world around them. Born in India and now living in San Francisco, she moved to the United States as a teenager and has spent years thinking about what it means to belong in two places at once. In her paintings, figures often blend into plants, rocks, and flowing water, and you can barely tell where a person ends and the landscape begins. Faces are left almost blank, with only a soft shadow suggesting a nose or a mouth, giving the work a dreamlike feeling, like watching a memory instead of a photograph. Mirchandani starts every painting by covering the canvas in a deep reddish orange, inspired by the soil of the part of India her family is from. That warm base shows through in the finished work, tying the painting back to a sense of home before a single figure is added. She works mostly in oil stick and oil pastel instead of a brush, dragging color across the canvas with her hands, which gives her work a rougher, more physical texture. Many of her recent paintings are inspired by old water spirits from South and Southeast Asian mythology. Mirchandani has moved quickly from small gallery shows to major museum walls, with her first solo museum show at a contemporary art institute in California and a separate debut show at a foundation gallery in New York, both the same year. She was also invited to an artist residency inside the World Trade Center, a rare honor this early in a career. Museums are paying attention because her work feels personal and universal at once. An immigrant story told through figures caught halfway between one world and the next. Clara Adolphs. Clara Adolphs paints strangers. She never meets the people in her paintings and rarely knows their names. Adolphs is an Australian artist who spends her time digging through flea markets, second-hand shops, and boxes of photographs left behind by people who have died, searching for old snapshots from the 1940s through the 1960s. When she finds a photo that grabs her, usually a blurry, faded picture of people swimming, skiing, or lying in the sun, she blows it up onto a huge canvas, sometimes wider than two adults standing side by side. Because the original photographs are small and low in detail, Adolphs has to make choices about what to leave out. She paints with thick paint and a palette knife instead of a brush, working fast so the picture keeps a loose, unfinished energy. Faces are often smudged or left in shadow, and colors stay muted, since she is copying the soft grays of an old photograph rather than real life. The result looks like a memory rather than a portrait, familiar but impossible to place exactly. Adolphs is not painting specific people so much as a feeling everyone shares. The strange comfort of recognizing a piece of yourself in strangers who lived decades ago. Her work now hangs in major Australian public collections, and she has shown in one of the country's most respected recurring art exhibitions. It is that original way of painting the past, using someone else's forgotten photographs to ask bigger questions about memory and time, that keeps pulling museums toward her work. Eunjo Lee. Eunjo Lee does not paint at all. She builds entire worlds using the same software video game designers use to create places like open-world adventure games. Lee is a South Korean artist based between London and Seoul, and instead of oil or canvas, her tools are computer programs called Unreal Engine and Blender, used to make blockbuster video games and movie effects. She uses them to construct glowing, dreamlike digital landscapes full of ruins, floating stones, and strange creatures that feel somewhere between alive and imagined. Every world Lee builds is based on old myths and legends from different cultures, blended into something new. She is especially interested in the idea that rocks and ruins might have their own kind of presence, so her digital films often linger on a stone or a crumbling structure for a long, quiet stretch of time. She pairs these slow scenes with tense, atmospheric music, so watching her work feels closer to being inside a myth. The goal, she has said, is to remind people that humans are just one small part of a much larger connected world. Lee only finished her master's degree in 2024, but she already had her first solo museum exhibition that same year at a contemporary art center in London, and has since been chosen for a prestigious online residency with a major arts foundation and Google's own arts and culture program. What makes museums take notice is that Lee treats video game technology as a serious tool for mythology and storytelling, a combination almost nobody else in the art world is doing. Gerald Lovell. Gerald Lovell taught himself to paint by watching videos on YouTube. Born in Chicago in 1992 to a Puerto Rican and African American family, Lovell started a college degree in graphic design, dropped out, and instead built his skills from free tutorials and hours of practice in his own studio in Atlanta. Today, he is known for portraits of the people closest to him, family, friends, and neighbors, shown in quiet, everyday moments, like sitting at a diner or resting in a chair. What makes Lovell's paintings instantly recognizable is his handling of paint itself. He applies thick, three-dimensional globs of oil paint directly onto the faces and skin of his subjects using a palette knife, while the background stays flat and simple. That contrast pulls your eye straight to the person, making their presence feel almost sculptural. Lovell thinks of painting as an act of biography, documenting people who might otherwise be forgotten, inspired partly by the huge photo albums his grandmother kept of their family. Lovell had his first solo show in 2019, and within 2 years, his work had already entered major private collections in the United States, Belgium, and Canada. He is often placed alongside painters like Kerry James Marshall and Alice Neal for the way he insists on showing Black everyday life without turning it into a political statement. That combination, all texture and no formal training, is exactly why museums keep paying attention, proof that striking new ideas can come from artists who built their own rules. Hannah Quinlan and Rosie Hastings. Hannah Quinlan and Rosie Hastings do not work alone. They are a two-person artist team, both born in 1991 and based in London, and every piece of art they make is created together rather than by one hand. Their work focuses on public spaces, buildings, streets, and parks, and the way those spaces quietly decide who feels welcome and who does not. Rather than canvas, one of their main tools is fresco, an ancient technique where pigment is applied directly onto wet plaster, historically used to decorate churches, government buildings, and schools. Quinlan and Hastings chose fresco on purpose because of that history. Fresco has traditionally shown up in places tied to power, religion, law, and education. So by using it to paint ordinary street scenes and public parks, they place everyday life on the same visual level as history's grandest paintings. Their scenes often show groups of people arranged in careful, almost theatrical poses, echoing old Renaissance compositions while depicting present-day British life. The duo also works in film, and one of their most talked about projects is a documentary-style video archive recording gay bars across the United Kingdom before they permanently closed down. In 2024, they were commissioned to create large-scale public mosaics for a major London train station, reaching thousands of commuters a day. Institutions are drawn to Quinlan and Hastings because they take a centuries-old painting technique and use it to document communities that rarely get that historical weight. Henry Hudson. Henry Hudson does not use a single tube of paint. Instead, this British artist creates his richly colored, thickly textured pictures entirely out of plasticine, the same soft modeling clay children use in school. Hudson heats the plasticine on a hot plate until it softens, then presses and sculpts it onto large wooden panels using his fingers, along with tools like pens to carve in fine detail. The finished pieces sit somewhere between painting and sculpture, with color and texture that physically rise off the surface instead of lying flat. Hudson turned to plasticine after falling for painters who used extremely thick layers of oil paint, realizing plasticine could get him that same chunky texture for a fraction of the cost. His most famous body of work reimagines a jungle, dense with vines and tangled vegetation, using bright, almost glowing colors that make the scenes feel more like a fever dream than a nature documentary. Each large panel can take well over a year to finish and can weigh close to 100 kilograms because of how much material is packed on. Early in his career, Hudson reimagined a famous 18th century series of moral paintings as a modern story about fame and downfall, and the entire show reportedly sold out before it opened. Since then, his practice has expanded into other unusual materials, including one series made from pigment and another built from plaster. Museums take Hudson seriously because he keeps proving painting does not require paint at all, just an unconventional material and patience. Hilary Harkness. Hilary Harkness paints entire worlds the size of a dinner plate. This American artist, born in Detroit in 1971, creates paintings so small and packed with detail that you often need to stand inches away to see everything happening inside them. Every single person in her paintings is a woman, placed inside complicated, imagined settings, often ships, factories, or historical scenes reworked from how they actually happened. Before becoming a painter, Harkness trained as a classical violinist. And that same discipline shows up in how carefully each tiny figure is rendered. Harkness paints so slowly and with such fine detail that she typically finishes only 1 or 2 paintings a year. Her technique is often compared to Renaissance and early Flemish Old Masters, the kind of paintings you would expect in a European museum from centuries ago, except every scene is rewritten with women in every role, including ones traditionally reserved for men in history. She got her start copying a famous Civil War painting inside a formal museum training program before flipping the story on its head in her own version. Because each piece takes so long, Harkness has a relatively small body of work for an artist her age, and that rarity has only made institutions want her paintings more. Her work is held in the permanent collection of a major American museum, and she has had solo exhibitions at respected New York galleries for over 2 decades. It is that exact mix of tiny scale, historical detail, and a full reversal of who gets to be the hero that keeps museums coming back for more. Masao Nakahara. Masao Nakahara spent 30 years away from painting completely. Born in Japan in 1956, Nakahara studied art in Tokyo and later moved to Düsseldorf, Germany in the early 1980s to keep training as a painter. Then for 3 decades, he stepped away from the art world almost entirely and worked as a translator instead. He only returned to painting in 2021, invited back by his old friend, the famous Japanese artist Yoshitomo Nara. Since then, at nearly 70, Nakahara has become one of the most talked about rediscoveries in contemporary painting. Nakahara's paintings blend his Japanese upbringing with the 4 decades he has spent living in Germany. His figures are simple, almost childlike, drifting through hazy, dreamlike scenes, floating on small boats, standing in fields, or resting quietly at home. He borrows ideas from German expressionist painters known for bold, emotional brushwork, while returning again and again to the cherry blossom, a symbol in Japanese culture for how beautiful things never last. That idea of impermanence sits at the center of almost everything he paints. Because Nakahara spent so long away from the art world, his return has felt less like a debut and more like the rediscovery of a hidden master. In 2025, he had his first solo show with a major London gallery, and in 2026, his work joins an exhibition at a museum in Tokyo. For museums, that is the draw, paintings that carry the weight of an entire life, a career interrupted for 30 years and returned to with a calm most younger painters spend their whole careers trying to reach. Max Hooper Schneider. Max Hooper Schneider builds aquariums that do not look like anything you would find in a pet store. This Los Angeles-based artist trained first in biology, then earned a master's degree in landscape architecture from Harvard, combining both to construct glass tanks and glowing display cases filled with a strange mix of real organic material and man-made debris. Inside one tank, you might find something that looks like drifting seaweed, but is actually made from dyed hair, resin, and paint, built to sway underwater like a living plant. Hooper Schneider treats his work like a scientific experiment crossed with a science fiction movie set. He fills his sculptures with crystals, neon lights, and even glowing uranium glass, alongside real biological material, blurring the line between what is natural and artificial. He has said a plastic toy and a tide pool are more alike than people think, since given enough time, nature and human trash end up shaping each other. The result looks like a leftover ecosystem from a future world after humans are gone. In 2017, Hooper Schneider installed a massive aquarium sculpture along New York's Highline Park, stopping thousands of walkers in their tracks. He had his first solo museum show at the Hammer Museum in Los Angeles in 2019, and a senior curator at London's Hayward Gallery has followed his career for nearly a decade. In 2026 alone, he completes a permanent public art commission in California and opens a new museum show in Buenos Aires. Museums want his work because nobody else builds sculptures like this. Nathanaëlle Herbelin. Nathanaëlle Herbelin paints the moments most artists skip over: someone brushing their hair, sitting quietly in a kitchen, or half asleep in the early morning light. Born in Tel Aviv in 1989 and based in Paris since 2011, Herbelin fills her canvases with the people closest to her: friends, family, her partner, and neighbors, caught in small, unguarded, everyday moments, rather than pose for the painting. Her paintings use warm, earthy colors and loose, soft brushwork that intentionally avoids looking too polished. Herbelin has said she wants her paint to feel closer to old wall frescoes than to traditional oil painting, dry and matte rather than shiny, giving her work a quiet, almost ancient stillness, even though the scenes are completely modern. She draws inspiration from a group of French painters from over a century ago, famous for finding poetry in ordinary domestic life, sometimes even painting a phone or laptop glowing softly in an otherwise timeless-looking room. In 2024, in her mid-30s, Herbelin became one of the youngest artists ever given a major solo exhibition at the Musée d'Orsay in Paris, one of the most respected museums in the world. Her paintings have since entered major European collections, including a prestigious private collection in France and a leading modern art museum in Amsterdam. That is exactly the reason museums keep giving her wall space. She paints the quietest moments of daily life with the seriousness history usually reserves for grand events.